I think this is one of those things that constantly needs to be brought back to our attention, because I feel like we all can resonate with it, but it requires, if not demands, our presence and being present in it. And it's understanding that what's not resolved always repeats. So we cannot run, or we can't wish to run from the things that we want to overcome, but rather we must walk through it. And I wrote here, you build the future in the present. But before anything can be built, you must be present. Before anything new can be built. Because a lot of times we're trying to build new things with the same old bricks. A lot of times we're trying to build new things on the same weak foundation that the last building fell. And we're wondering why it's not happening for us, and it's because we haven't changed anything. But because before something can be changed, it must first be acknowledged. Before something can become better, it must first be acknowledged. And I wrote something else here. And it says, you can't be ready, you can only be present. And hopefully you get the theme of this. It's being present. It's being right where your feet are. Because that's where you are needs you most. Boy, that might be the one that people sleep on. Where you are now needs you most. There's not going to be a more befitting time than the time that you're already in. I think so many, this might have just been the thing that resonated with me. This is the message that comes back to the messenger. It's realizing this. Stop for a second. If we can just do this together, let's practice this. Let's stop thinking about the future, and let's stop referencing the past. And let's just be where we are. And ask ourselves so that we can acknowledge, where are we trying to go? Not where we're coming from, and not even what we want the destination to be, but rather just what's the direction that we're headed. Ask ourselves that, and then what are the steps that I must take to get there? Because if we don't, we're going to end up going in a circle. We're going to end up going back into that cycle, because what's not resolved always repeats, and we're going to find ourselves getting lost again and getting back to the same place that we once were. A place that's probably most familiar, like this, when we get caught up in that comfort zone and we wonder why do we get caught up here? Isn't it funny how the comfort zone is also one of the most discomforting things? We don't want to be where we've always been. Isn't it funny how the place that is the most familiar also is the place that you kind of least want to be? I feel like we're so driven, maybe this is human nature, and maybe this is something we must give ourselves grace towards. But I feel like we're just always in a constant pursuit instead of just being constantly present. Knowing that if we're on the journey, then there's only one way to go, and that's forward. And that just meaning that the destination is inevitable. But can you be present along the journey? Can you be present in each step that you take? And I always ask, can you? Because I want you to ask yourself, can you? And then if you feel like you can't, then make the decision to do so. And then acknowledge what those things are, because a lot of the goals and stuff that we set are just wishful thinking because there's no plan attached to them. It's just idle chatter. And if you've been here long enough, you know Proverbs 14 and 23 by now. And it's the fact that all labor leads to profit. All labor leads to profit, but idle chatter leads only to poverty. So it's about acknowledging and in doing more than you said. Because just to speak about something is cool. Eric Thomas says this. He says, ideas are praised, but execution is worshipped. Ideas are praised, but execution is worship. Now you can take that into any context that you wanted to take it in. But I like that saying. Because I think what's cool is an electric car. The idea of an electric car is cool. But what makes Tesla is the execution of it. And you can say, well, there are plenty of cars that kind of had that hybrid thing going on before, but it was the full leap of faith to go fully into the electric and then build up a whole ecosystem and I'm not even trying to get on any of that, right? All I'm trying to say is you can have an idea or you can have the execution. Which one do you pick? And it's not even to say there's an option, it's rather one is needed before the other. But many of us get caught on the idea and it stays just an idea. And the only thing that's happening, the only way that the idea comes to life is that you just keep talking about it, but you never do anything with it. And it drives back this bigger notion of this, and which I feel like it's derived from anyway in the Bible, in James, and it just talks about faith without works is dead. So we can talk about having faith, we can believe something can happen for us, but if the actions are in alignment with it, then we can never come into agreement with the goal. The goal can never manifest. It can never actually be before us. It can never come out of head and into hand. And there's one more thing that I wrote down here, if I can find it. Okay. This is happening in real time, y'all, so excuse me if I'm trying to find this. Here it is. Appreciate who you are now. Appreciate who you are now. I think I was saving this for something else, but why not say it now? All we have is today. All we have is the present. Who knows what tomorrow brings? So if nobody's giving you the permission, you have it right now to appreciate who you are now. And I wrote this: if you don't appreciate who you are in this moment, what's going to make you appreciate yourself in the next? That's profound. If you don't appreciate who you are now, what makes you feel like you're going to appreciate yourself in the next moment? This is the validation that you need. That to not waste any moment and to be where you are when you're in it. Be in it, anything that you do fully. Don't be double-minded nor present physically, but gone mentally. And everything that you do, just be here right now. There's no other thing that matters more than where you are right now and what you're doing right now. Fully submit to it. If it's just watching this video, don't be distracted. And if this is the distraction, then even at the demise of me, turn this off and fully submit and focus on what the main thing is. But basically what I'm saying is keep the main thing the main thing. Focus on that. And this last thing that I want to mention is this. I've said it before, but I feel like you need to hear this again. And it's understanding that your current discomfort doesn't have anything to do with who you are or who you're becoming, but rather who you've been. Your previous self. The discomfort that you are now experiencing is coming from the previous version of yourself not allowing you to fully experience who you're trying to become. Your previous self's discomfort is trying to talk you out of your current self. Its discomfort is trying to deter you from moving any further to your current experience. And all I'm saying is show yourself some grace, but also sometimes you gotta learn to tell yourself shut up. I know. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting how you can get in your own way? Isn't it interesting how you can really be the biggest blockade to your own greatness? That you can halt you can hold you back. But if you flip the coin, you can also be your biggest motivator, your biggest inspiration, your biggest encourager. It can easily go from you versus you to you and you. And that's what this is all about. This is all about creating the change. Because before anything can change, you must. Before there's any change, you must change. It all starts with you. It all comes from you. Your existence and your experience is rather something that you live versus something that you are responding to or reacting to. Most of life actually comes from you, which is why we say be the life instead of trying to see it. It's actually coming from you, not to you. So the moment that you decide to be your helping hand could be the exact moment where you begin to resolve so you don't have to keep repeating. And I was going to end it there, but I think this last point is something that I want to drive home, and I would be remiss to say this. A lot of times you're going through, I feel like this is exactly for you, so maybe let this be your sign. A lot of times you feel like you keep going through the same thing, and the reason why you keep going through the same thing is because you haven't yet come into alignment and agreement with the change. And all I'm saying is sometimes God is going to keep allowing you to go through the same test until you pass it. And there's been times where you've just chosen to not pass it. And other times there's just been times where you've tried to cheat your process. And you have to be careful, because cheating your process doesn't do anything but cheating you. But even deeper, don't cheat your process, because God could be watching. God could be testing. Biblically, it says that he tests us, but he doesn't tempt us. So knowing this is just saying this, that everything that he's trying to test you with is for your benefit, not for your detriment. So it's for you to get better, but you have to choose to. It's still your will. Yes, it still takes you to be willing to surrender your will to God. It's still your will, I promise you. But once you surrender your will to God, then it's his will, but then it's still your work. I know. You're like, when can I just be done? But God wants you to be a part of your own process. Just like you got your own dreams and your goals, God wants you to be able to accomplish those. God actually wants you to step into those things. Only reason why you can't is because what's not resolved always repeats. And a lot of times, what's repeating is you getting in your own way. So stop. And if you made it to the end of this video, I pray that it helps. I pray that this is the beginning of something new. The Bible talks about God doing a new thing. The Bible also talks about him building roads in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Meaning he's providing clarity, he's providing guidance in places where it's not found, and he's also providing resources and nourishment in places where it's not met. So imagine that. And imagine he wanted to do that specifically in your life and do something new with you. But you must be willing to allow that to happen and to get your actions in alignment so that you can come into agreement with it. But hey, maybe today. But if not, that's okay. Because I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.